Hello and welcome to another edition of the SpareTime Podcast with me, Nigel, and him,
Ben.
After one of the last ones, we never know what he's going to say when we do that. Sponsored by ADR Wear. Got our shirts from there, so we'd like to thank them very, very much for doing that. Today we have another special guest, and I think this is the first PBA Hall of Famer that we've got? We've had so far? Yeah, I think it's the first PBA Hall of Famer we've had on the SpareTime Podcast. We'd like to welcome Mika Koivuniemi. Have I got that right, Mika? Sorry.
Close enough.
Koivuniemi. Yeah, I've been practicing for 10 minutes and I've just completely forgot it. I've got it written down somewhere. Koivuniemi, that's it. Yes, I've got it right now.
Yes.
I don't speak any Finnish, as you probably can tell. So thank you for coming on. It's much appreciated. And I think to start off with, you're probably the most decorated PBA bowler that we've had on this podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. There's a lot of guys who has achieved more than me, but maybe they come later.
Yeah, you've certainly got an impressive record. And so just to start off with some questions. I mean, you retired from the PBA, but then you came back. What was the decision to come back after your retirement?
I'm still retired from the PBA. I'm not throwing the bowling ball for a living. I was eight and a half years in UAE coaching their national teams, and I did not renew my contract end of the last year. And it moved back to USA, start to bowl a little bit more myself, start in a league and start to feel good and start to practice. And now I've been bowling few PBA 50 tournaments. I did bowl few PBA 50 tournaments when I was living in UAE. And I get my leagues fitted for the PBA 50 schedule, but not too many.
I mean, you've moved around a bit because you lived in the US while you were in the PBA Tour and then UAE. And are you in Finland at the moment?
No, I'm back in US. We are.
Oh, you're back in the US. Whereabouts in the US?
I'm in Michigan. I'm north part of the Michigan small town called Traverse City.
Wow. Yeah. That's good. So, you've certainly moved around a little bit, and you've done a lot of things in your time. And another record I think you hold here for this podcast is the highest cashing PBA player that we've had so far. I mean, looking at your list of achievements, it's pretty impressive in all respects. Not just to mention, I think you were the first European into the PBA Hall of Fame. So, where did your bowling journey start originally?
I started back in Finland, in Tampere, and I started to bowl when I was 11 years old. I have a family history of bowling. My grandpa was running a bowling center, I guess late 50s, early 60s, and even my mom was like a pin girl there. And my grandpa was pretty good. My mom started bowling when she was the pin girl. Teenage, but when my mom and dad got divorced, my mom started to bowl again, and I kind of followed her to the bowling center that time. And like I say, 11 when I was starting, and let's say when I was 13 or 14, that was my main sport. I was doing all kinds of sports when I was a kid, but by that time, bowling was the number one for me.
So what was your route from moving from youth bowling to something more serious? How did that happen?
Finland, it's really competitive all the time. It's a club sport. So I wasn't that good when I was really young, but let's say when I get like 17, 18, I start to get better, and I actually made the junior team Finland that time. And I guess that was like a big thing for me to see that I can make a national team in Finland, what is always been strong national team in the level.
Okay. So what's the bowling scene like in Finland? I mean, we've never been to Finland. We don't know much about how the bowling scene is. What is it? Is it a popular sport in Finland?
It was pretty popular like 80s and 90s. It's because all the success the national team had, they still have, but now there's much more sports around the world anyway. But it was pretty well known sport in Finland. There was 3, 4, 5 live TV shows from Finland, different tournaments like Ballmaster Open or national championships, and even some team tournaments every year. So bowling was doing okay, and it was a big club sport. So there was like every city had plenty of different 6 to 60 people clubs, and a lot of small league balls in your city, and then of course in national.
Okay, so you moved from you went into the Finnish national team, and what was the next step after that? Where did you move on from there?
So I started to bowl the best club in the country after the junior teams. I moved to Tampere to Helsinki to achieve my goals as a bowler, and I was getting better, and I started to make the men's national team, and of course 1991 I won the FIQ World Championships in Singapore in Masters, so I got the silver in all events, and that was like my international breakthrough. And like about a year before that, I stopped working as an electrician and only focusing for bowling. So in Finland, there's a lot of small tournaments, and like qualification is 2 to 4 weeks every place. You bowl 6 games, and one evening they will have a finals, and I just bowl those small tournaments like here almost every day, something somewhere, and try to win some money to pay the bills. And I bowl more than 1,000 games the tournament for many years in Finland in a row.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, I kind of want to focus on your induction at the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure, it's one of those things that when you start, everyone sort of goes, "This is, the dream, and this is like the ambition." But for a lot of people, that dream never comes true. But for you, it did. Tell us a bit about what it was like finding out that they wanted you to become part of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, when I retired 2015, I know my resume was really good, but I need to be 20 years a member of the PPA. So I know that 2019 would be my first possible year to get in, and of course I expect to be 2-time Player of the Year and win a couple of really big tournaments and stuff like that. So I expect to be selected, but you never know. And when commissioner called me, it was a great call for sure. I was in Dubai, and he called me and he said, "It's like, congratulations, you will be inducted in January to the Hall of Fame." So that was one of the best calls I ever got for sure.
Awesome. So you are the most decorated bowler we've had on, and it's going to be hard to beat because you're one of the most decorated bowlers ever. I'd say. So you've won a lot of competitions. You won majors. You've won basically most things there are to win. What's one of those standout events that you played and you go, yeah, that's one that I'm really proud of?
Oh, there is of course many in different part of my career. To winning the World Championships 91, that's very important for me to know that I can do well at international level. And then 96, when I moved to US, I was thinking I'm gonna do much better early. First, I came here to bowl those amateur tournaments, mega buck tournaments, and there was a lot of money to make, like professional amateurs like Pat Healy, Chris Barnes, and other guys were doing the same thing what I met when I was bowling overseas in the early 90s. But it's first year didn't go too well. Like first after 6-7 months, I noticed I need to do something because I think I bowled my best and I cannot compete. So I was lucky enough to be able to work with Ron Happy, who has been my coach a few years at that point. He worked really hard to make pretty big changes for my bowling and understanding bowling and for my style, and to be more friendly with reactive ball, let's say that way. So I changed a lot my role and I was much more versatile to change things after 1 year hard working. And then 97, I won my first and only Megabuck tournament in Hoinki Super Classic. It was 100,000 price back then. And so that showed me that I did the right thing. And then May 99, I joined the PPA when those megabuck tournaments start to go down. You couldn't make so much money anymore, and PPA start to get these great megabuck players in like year before, like Barnes. Let's use Barnes example. So he started winning already. So I was thinking I was really competitive when I was playing with him, against him in amateur side and around the world, and he's doing okay in the PPA. So I just decided I give a try and let's see what happens.
Awesome. So, you mentioned before that originally you were an electrician working in Finland, but, you made that venture over, you made the big leap, and it is a very big leap, especially you being not a US native, to get over from Finland to America. That's a leap in itself, but obviously you've got like all the immigration, citizenship. There's a lot of hurdles you've got to jump through, and a lot of barriers you've got to break to be able to forge a career on the professional scene as an international bowler. So how did you come about to that thought process of this is what I want to do? I want to be one of the best bowlers in the world. I want to go over here. And what encouraged you to make the leap?
Oh, when I was bowling in Finland after 91 or 90, when I started to bowl for living in Finland, just those small tournaments, and try to get the money to go bowl a little bit bigger ones in overseas. After doing that for a few years, I was like, this is not what I want to do. I want to see if I can be, how good I can be. I know I'll be best in Finland and I can do okay internationally. So, like I said, I see these Pat Healy, Chris Barnes, a couple of even Robert Smith that time. They start to travel also Asia and somewhere else where I saw them. And they told me, come to US and see, there's a megabucks, there's money to make. And so we did that decision as a family to leave and see how good I can be. We sold our apartment or our row house basically, and that got like a starting money to do that and see how it would go. And I was lucky to find the right people quite early when I moved to US, like owner of the Turbo 2-in-1 Grips, Dave Bernhard. He started sponsoring me. He sponsored our green card. He was doing a lot of help, because back then it's not that easy to get in and stay and try to be like first one from Europe after Mats Carson. I don't know how Mats did, but he went straight to the PPA. But we did everything legally. We did everything right. And if I never met the Dave, probably wouldn't have career what I had. So you need to be good. You need to be doing a lot of work, but you need to also meet the right people, right time. That will help to make that leap. And then moving to PPA 3 years later, that was the big leap too, to see what it's gonna be. And I know it's gonna be a learning curve. And it took me about a year before my first win, so I felt I did pretty good there. And let's say 2003, 2004 was my real breakthrough year when I made 7-8 shows and won 2 times, and I was 300 and was player of the year. So after that, things got a little bit easier because I made my name and I can get a little bit more sponsor money, and it comes a little bit easier, everything. Because bowling was basically only income for our family in the US. My wife was working a little bit, some point full time, but mostly part time.
Mm-hmm. So, the leap you made was a huge one, and it's sort of all props to your family for having the faith and supporting you through that. But I think it's a really valuable lesson to a lot of people in the world that if you want to do something and you're willing to put everything on the line for it, you don't know how good you can get, and just going, I'm going to put my all into this. Great things can happen. For example, if you never decided we're going to make this jump, then you wouldn't be sitting here right now, and you wouldn't have done all the amazing things you've done. And talking of amazing things you've done, you were the only PBA player to make all 4 major telecasts in 1 year. Tell us a bit about that.
No, actually, I was the first one. I think Belmo did it a few years ago. I think he made all telecasts, but I was the first one to do it, and that was great accomplishment. Of course, the last major that year was the U.S. Open, and I made the final. And probably most famous shot for most people what I did was when I missed the 10-pin, not to have a chance to win it with my field ball, but still I know it was a great season. I know at that point that I'm gonna win the Play of the Year anyway, so it made it a little bit easier. But yeah, being the first one ever, same season, making all major shows, that's I'm really proud of.
Yeah, we've covered with a few PBA players on the podcast about the ones that are not American as to how they got to the US, because it's often a subject of interest for a lot of people, because we have bowlers that want to be in the PBA but not quite sure how to do it. Well, I mean, maybe in '96 it was different. I don't know, but what was the practicalities or the issues that you might have encountered going to the US and staying there for any length of time? Because I don't know if it's different then, but now you can't just go there now. But how did you get around those barriers?
Yeah, I back in Finland, I got like a sportsmanship or sportman visa for 1 year for the embassy, because I told them I'm gonna go bowl. Even I didn't go for the PPA that time. I was just going to bowl and try to make a living for bowling, because at that time it was basically possible. And like I say, then I met the Dave Bernhard and Turbo Grips, and not only I moved to Chesterfield, Michigan, where the factory was, and he just built a 2-lane bowling center, his main business factory areas where I could practice every day. I still have a key for that building, even I'm living 4 hours away now. But it's like I say, then they some point say that we need to get you green card, we need to stay here. So a lot of help from the right people. I think that's the right way, because we wanted to live in US. It's not like I wanted to travel from Finland and bowling, especially at that time. PPA started, was 30 weeks a year. So it's quite difficult to go back and forth, and 8 weeks and then 12 weeks and then whatever 12 weeks, however it was. So that helped a lot, like I say. He's the most important person in my career, basically.
Do you think it was easier in those days to do what you've done, or do you think it's easier now, or what is it? Has it got any more difficult?
It's certain way it's easier, because the PPA season is much shorter right now. You don't travel every week for different city for 12 weeks in a row. Maybe you bowl one place, 2-3 tournaments what they take in. Back then, this week we bowl Michigan, Detroit. Next week we bowl St. Louis, Missouri. Then we go wherever we go, Las Vegas, and then we go California, and then we go somewhere else. It was real tour life. I think this time that part is much easier. You don't have to travel, you don't have to do all of those things. Back then, internet really wasn't active yet, and try to make all the reservations and find a way to drive or fly, and all kind of struggles that time, but are so much easier nowadays with the help of internet. Plus, you don't have to travel. Of course, one part nowadays, if you're matching for that one bowling center, you might be really good season, because half of the tournament can be in one bowling center. Back then, 25 different tournaments in 25 different bowling centers. So even if you had a bad ball reaction or bad week or whatever, so maybe next bowling center matching me well. So I need to be ready and try to prove that I belong here.
Okay, I mean, for the late 90s, early 2000s was some time ago, 24, 25 years ago. How has the PBA changed compared to what it was when you first joined it? I mean, 24 years is a long time in bowling. What are the changes that you've seen in that time?
Of course, the formats was basically same format every week. When I started, was 6 games. Then there was the cut for top 24, and they played the round robin, and then was the step ladder finals. Only thing that was different was the majors, where they ball 8 plus 8, and then 24 games round robin, and then step ladder. So it was more grinding and try to survive and make a cut, and then try to make a move in a round robin. And it took me a long time to understand that the game starts in last 16 games or tournament starts. That's all the big boys start to striking, and a couple of times I was doing pretty well to the qualification and even first block of the round robin, and then comes the last day, and these guys they know what to do. They put their striking shoes and make a big moves, and it was big difference compared to amateur scenes what I see around the world already by then. Like many times, like those pressure situation, scores start to go down the last couple of games because people start to trying to make it or whatever. And PPA was always opposite. You always have to ball your best in the last couple of games to make that move. You never got anything in the free. That's what I remember from that time. Nowadays, there's so many different formats. There's much shorter ball. They don't ball as many games. It's not 42 games for basic tournament anymore. So that has changed a lot. Of course, bowling balls has changed, spins has changed, bowling balls, oils, everything has changed. It's scoring pace getting higher and higher. Even the PPA never be easy. Yeah, there might be some weeks when the scores are really high, but they are still pretty challenging oil condition to see who is the best. That always been like that.
Yeah, you mentioned bowling balls have changed over that time, but what else in the game of bowling itself? What else? What are the big changes have you seen in like that 25, 26 years or whatever it was since you first went to the US? How is the game different now?
Of course, the biggest change right now is the two-handed bowling. It's taking over. More younger players, most all of them are two-handers nowadays. And I don't blame. If I had a boy who was young who wants to go and bowl, I would teach them two-handed for sure. I don't know what's going to be 25 years from now, but right now it seems like that's the right way to do it. And there's good one-handed, but those one-handed guys, they need to have a high rev rate to compete against the two-handers. Game is more athletic, more power. It's changing, but what sport hasn't changed last 25 years? So we can't turn the clock back and go for those old great 70s times and do what we did in 70s in any sport. So we have to adjust. We need to train what the environment wants us to be nowadays.
Yeah, and I think that evolution is probably necessary to keep people's interest in the sport, because if any sport stays the same for too long, then people will start to lose interest. And you've only got to look at things like F1 to see that every year F1 is different to what it was the year before, and it's a constant battle to try and keep the audience and trying to keep people engaged. And I think bowling is probably no different for that reason. Another record that you have, that you won the biggest prize of anything in the Tournament of Champions, $250,000. Well, talk us through that. When was that? What year was that?
That was 2011. That was the year they decided that they're going to make one really big tournament and try to get as much publicity for that tournament. And yeah, that was one of the highlights for sure for my career, to end up winning that tournament. But it was struggle for me also. It was the long format. We bought, I think, 24 games or 32 games before round robin, and I barely made it to round robin And that time, I think after 3 or 4 games of round robin, I was like 22nd. And then I just figured out something and started winning matches and started climbing higher and higher. So basically what I remember from 99, 2000, that time, and those big boys, when they started bowling great and making that move, and that moment I was doing the same thing and end up making the show. And the show, first match was really tight. It looked like I'm going to lose. Then Gomez basically threw one bad shot and get penalized. And I have a chance to close the door, but good shot. I left, I think, 10 pin. And now he needed to strike, and he left a good shot. He didn't strike either. So I get through that first match, and I start to feel much more comfortable. And then I bowl against Tom Doherty, the big match, when I shoot 299 and he shoot 100. And I know all the breaks are made to be broken, but I don't see that 199 being different on TV match ever be broken. So that's one thing for sure. I'm proud to be part of that. That side, not the 100 side. And I bowled really good the final game. I think I bowled 260 or something like that to win the title at 250,000. So that was really meaningful for me, for sure.
I think that just proves that, when a PBA player bowls 100, it proves that anybody can have a bad game. It doesn't matter who you are. It's just the nature of bowling.
Yeah, but that 100, if somebody goes and watch that in YouTube or somewhere, the way Doherty bowls that 100 is unbelievable. He never misses the head pin. Second spare shot, he always gets at least one. So if you try to bowl 100 game that way, almost impossible. It's probably much more difficult than bowling 299.
Yeah, I mean, 11, what is it now, 13 years ago since that Tournament of Champions, $250,000 has never happened again since.
It happened a few years ago. I think Kyle Troop, there was one of the tournaments in 21 or something like that. Kyle Troop won. Me and Kyle Troop are the only ones who won 250,000 from PBA.
I mean, do you think that is good for bowling to have such a large prize at the end of the tournament? Do you think that adds to the excitement?
As a player, for sure, it puts more pressure and more excitement. And I think it's great to have high prize funds, because that's what the young kids see and their families see. If they can see it, oh, my kid can make $250,000 for 1 week. So maybe we start to push in kids for that sport, because they can make a living doing that or something like that. It's not only certain sport where you can make it.
Do you think in order to get those high prize funds, it needs to be more high profile sponsorship of bowling? Because compared to a lot of sports, the level of sponsorship in bowling is relatively low.
Yeah, it's difficult to see. Not too often you see like big outside sponsors in any bowling event anywhere in the world. And I wish the PPA prize fund would be much higher what they are. There are a couple of tournaments where the top prize is good, but if you look in the prices, let's say 15 to 30, it's way too long being that close to top of the world. And you're finishing there whole your season, winnings are not enough for living for 1 year, basically.
Mm-hmm. So you've competed in multiple different continents. You've played probably every event that's going, events that exist now, events that don't exist now. But you've played a lot of competitions in a lot of different countries, different environments, against different people. How different is it playing like a European event or an event in Japan than it is to play in a PBA event?
It's different. First of all, it's always different culture when you go to US, to PBA. Everybody's there making their living. So there's a piece of cake that week, and that's a prize fund, and everybody wants to get as big piece of that cake, as big a slide of that cake. And They are there winning, making money, not making friends. When you go to Europe, basically all the tournaments are entry driven, so you have to have these people who come and bowl for fun and almost none of chance to make the finals, so no chance to winning basically. But you need those people to support that tournament, support the prize fund. And those are more fun, they are more friendly. Even there are a few people who are there to trying to make a living. And let's say Japan, bowling always been pretty popular there. Cultural thing, totally different. A lot of good bowlers there, a lot of people watching compared to Europe. So everywhere is different. Then you go to the Middle East, bowling to Qatar or somewhere else. There's used to be a lot of tournaments in the Middle East. There was really good prize fund, all funded by government somehow. Not so many local bowlers, but few of them are always really competitive. And it's nobody, stands basically. It's just bowling. Again, different culture, different environment.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, you've bowled everywhere you can think of. Do you prefer bowling, obviously PBA events in America, or maybe do you prefer bowling in places like Japan?
I don't really care as long as there's enough tournaments. I like the part when the 2011 to 15, the World Bowling back then tried to make that World Tour with the PBA and give even PBA titles, couple of those, and I think that was going for the right direction. But I guess the funding again difficult to fund those tournaments, and maybe some of them they got funding, maybe they didn't get enough recognition for that, and it was hard. But I wish there would be like World Tour again, really competitive, because we need more tournaments, we need more big tournaments, and bowling gets much more international. It's not only US anymore. Like you say, in Europe there's probably 10 guys every year right now trying to bowl the PBA Tour. 25 years ago I was the only one for a long time, and I was living in US, so I didn't even come from Europe. So it's good. Ladies Tour, when you watch the Ladies Tour, there's a lot of people around the world, and Asian ladies doing really well there, and some of the Europeans too. So South Americans doing good. So it's much more international, I think, ladies side, and it will get more also on the men's side at some point.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you mentioned how there's bowlers from all different parts of the world now. And obviously last night, coming off the back of it, I believe it was Jane Lee Singh who won the Women's US Open. And I believe she's Chinese. I'm not 100%.
She's from Malaysia.
Malaysia.
And she won like 3 times already this year. So she probably will be the player. Yeah. She should be the player of the year for the tour this year.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle to catch the ladies tour because from where we are in England, it's difficult to catch it. It's not always streamed, but from what I've seen of her, she's a bit out of this world. From like, she looks heads and shoulders above a lot of people, and I think she'll be one of those people that you look at maybe 10, 15 years time and go, she was great. But I think it speaks volumes about how sort of the PBA is, it's gotten more prestigious. But obviously, you mentioned that when you were starting out, there was just you competing from Europe, and there wasn't many people about. But now there's a massive variety. I mean, you got people from Australia, literally all over playing PBA, PWBA, even PBA regionals. You've got such a huge demographic of people. What do you think sort of has been the catalyst for this, vast improvement of, different nations playing on the PBA tour?
I think first of all, PBA has become more international friendly. When I first went, it really wasn't that friendly because how the tournament were, you have to spend so much time in the US and travel so much. Now it's much more cost effective the way they do it. Is that good or bad thing in the sports side? We can debate for that. But that's one. But also bowling around the world, it's getting more serious in many countries as a sport. But it's funded by federations, the governments. Like many Asian countries, they get a lot of funding from the government, and those, let's say, Malaysian ladies and men, they are basically full-time athletes. They get paid for training 5 days a week by the government. And like I say, now the ladies too, there are many of them, Singapore ladies last few years been doing well there too. So they are athletes and they compete great in international, and they go for the professional tour, they're doing well. And same thing, of course, Belmo is a big part of that for sure. And hopefully I was some kind of part for, especially for the Europeans. And Amuletto maybe for the South Americans.
Yeah, I think South America is the only part of the world at the moment that there's not many, if any. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if you sort of consider Mexico as South America, do you? Central America. Yeah, see, I mean, you've got a few Mexicans, but I don't know of any off the top of my head. Anyway, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know of any South Americans on the PBA tour at the moment.
Yeah, there are not anyone who's doing really well right now, but yeah, of course, Amuletto Monacelli was there from late 80s and dominating early 90s, and he's a big part. And there's been some Venezuelans, there's been some Colombians. Andre Gomez from Colombia was there when I was there and won a couple of times, and so there's been.
He's gone. You're gonna do weird. I'm gonna have to edit this. Hang on, what's happened here? Hello? Hello?
Well, yeah, I'm hearing you. I saw that.
What happened there?
I don't know. I just went for a big screen.
Connection.
I'll have to edit that out.
Yeah. No problem.
So I was just writing down the time frame. But yeah, so like you said, there's people from all over now, and I feel like you mentioned how federations are helping fund it. I mean, over in England, I wouldn't say there's much, like the government doesn't, there's not any support, to be honest with you, from the government here. But countries, especially like your own, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, they have a lot of government backing, a lot of federation backing, and there's a lot of things in place to help these bowlers develop. What do you think's sort of fueling these federations and governments to start putting money and resources into making bowling a bigger part of their country? But also, how important do you think it is that these governments are actually helping bowlers achieve their dreams and even bring in new people that are looking at bowling? I mean, for Iceland, for example, we have a coach who's arguably one of the most reputable coaches in England, and he's now been picked up by the Icelandic squad, and he goes abroad coaching. It's the same with you when you went to the UAE to be their head coach. You've seen a lot of governments and federations now investing a lot of money to bring in the best talent and try and investing a lot in bowling. How important do you think that is?
Of course, it's really big help for any country, any federation. Like Finland always been getting some support for the government, and they have a great program. The way how they put that money for the develop for new players or the current national team, that changes to year, but I think they've been doing great job. And there is there's a way for young people right now in Finland from young kid to the national team. There's a way to do that right now, and it's supported by federation and it's funded by government, and that's what you need. And bowling would get much more help for many countries if we someday can get for the Olympics. Right now it doesn't look as good. It looks some point much better. But hopefully, next 12 years we find something and bowling gets to the Olympics, and then there will be much more funding. And like Asian countries, they've been getting a lot of funding for bowling because bowling has been part of the Asian Games, which is basically Olympics for Asian countries. And right now, next Asian Games, it's not gonna be there, but I guess one after that it will be back there. So that's good news for the bowling in Asia.
Mhm.
But we need that also in Europe and South America. So I think we should try to get somehow bowling in the Olympics. And I guess when we get more young people be interested for the sport, and sport's gonna be more media sexy and something that young people look up to, our way to Olympics gonna be much easier.
Yeah. I mean, the Olympics is a tough one. It's not really. I suppose it's more up to like the federation than it is like that one federation than a lot of people. But how there is federations like your own that are really supporting. How do you think we can incentivize countries like England or other countries that might not have that much government backing or federation backing to develop these athletes? What do you think we can do to try and encourage more countries to follow suit of places like Finland and Asia?
Oh, it's a great question. If there's the easy answer, I'm sure people are doing that already. I think every bowler, we should, if we respect our sport, people notice that. But I see too many times bowlers, they don't respect our sport. And they don't talk positive things, they talk negative things. But we all should always talk positive things for bowling. What is good in bowling? What is good in the sport of bowling? And bring this information for people. Maybe then we can get more publicity. And when we get more publicity, we get more sponsors and so on. So I think we all need to do our part. It's not only president of some federation who can do something. It's every member of the federation, or even the family members of the bowlers who bowl. We need to be supportive of our sport.
So you went to be a coach with the UAE team. What the bowling scene like in the UAE?
Middle East is a little bit different than anything else. It's all government funded. And again, part of this that was because the Asian Games and like the UAE, they even won gold medals in Asian Games in bowling a few times. So it was pretty well funded. So they pay head coach, there was one assistant coach from local, there was the office people, all get paid by the government, and then the federation get funding for training. So like we had 5 days a week training, but was always free for all the locals who are team members. Any local who wanted to come to training, I need to look, and if I think that we can have a chance, we take him in at least for a while, especially younger people, and teach them the basics and see if they have a future in the sport. So there's basically no cost for any young player who wanted to be part of the team, at least for a while. And if they show that they are passionate and they want to get better, we kept them in the training programs. Everything is paid. Anytime we go to the trip as national team, some championships, these people, they get like a sport leave, they work, meaning they get part of their salary, and anything in the trip doesn't cost. Most of the time they get a couple of new bowling balls before the tournament and stuff like that, and all that money comes from the federation, and federation get funding for every trip also from the sport ministry.
So once again, we see that there's government support there. So that's probably one of the reasons why there's, the UAE is strong in bowling because of that. But it's something we don't have in the UK, unfortunately. I mean, we've mentioned a lot of countries. We're talking about UAE, we're talking about Japan, we're talking about Singapore, the US, etc., Finland. A lot of different cultures are covered there with the tournaments that you've been in different countries. And I know you said earlier that it doesn't really matter where you're playing. But do you find there's any particular cultural influences from bowling in certain countries? Is there certain countries that where the culture shapes the game of bowling as opposed to how it is in maybe the Western world?
Yeah, like the Middle East all Middle East countries, they are all well funded for the government, and they can bring the outside coaches there to help develop the players and build the programs or whatever they want to do. So that's a big plus for them. Of course, the players pool are always small. It's not like there's 100 people want to be part of the team. It's only a few, and try to find those kids who can develop for great players. It's more challenging there than, let's say, Asia, where there's thousands of people want to be part of the national team, and what is funded also by government. Oh, it's tough to say. What is Korea used to be a great country for bowling. I don't know how well it goes there. It still goes really well there. Japan was going down, now it's going up again. But I think the Asian countries, because that Asian Games funding, it was helping a lot then to develop good bowlers and great programs there. But coaching style, let's say Asia haven't changed as much two-handed yet. I think they're a little bit behind most countries there. But for sure, they will have so many people trying for the teams, and it will change more for two-handed, even younger players there.
Now, what do you think is the incentive for governments to support their national bowling teams in some countries and not others? What's the reason for that?
I think why countries usually support any sport, they name the scene somewhere. They want to see their flag somewhere, hear their national anthem. That will bring joy for the people in the country, and maybe this country get more recognized by other countries. Maybe that will bring tourists. Maybe that brings something else for the country. I think that's the biggest reason for every country.
We haven't seen, the enthusiasm for bowling in the Asian continent. Haven't really seen that moved over to the PBA in terms of the number of competitors from Asia, have we? Really, it seems to be. I mean, it's always been dominated by US players, but now there's more. Maybe a few European players getting there, but Asian players seem to be quite rare in the PBA.
That's for sure, but I think partly of that is because they are so tight for those national teams. They live like the athletes. They cannot just go and bowl themselves. They need to get permission for the federations because they get paid by them, and so on and so on. And Korea has their own professional tour. Japan has their own professional tour. It's a little bit different. And some of the Koreans, some of the Japanese been going for the PBA over the years. But let's say like Singapore, Malaysia, Korea, those national team players, Philippines, whoever that's good there, they don't usually go there. And I guess that's because they are so tight for the national team program.
So after coaching in the UAE, back to the PBA, this time the PBA 50, was that an intentional decision, or is it just it's just something that happened when you finished in the UAE?
Yeah, when I decided not to resign anymore there, so I didn't really want to bowl because I think COVID kind of like killed a little bit my bowling. Yes, I went to bowl a couple of times in PBA 50, 20, even after COVID 21, I bowled a few, and last summer I bowled the Masters, and actually bowl bad in the Masters and matches. So that kind of like, can I ever get for the good bowling shape anymore? If I want to bowl any tournaments, I want to feel like I have a chance to win. And after that tournament, I didn't feel that I give away matches, and usually I was the guy who had to be beaten. I didn't keep anything free. I didn't really bowl anything. And January, I went to Finland after my contract finished, and I was there doing the ball master. I didn't have any bowling shoes, nothing. I was there for seeing family and doing other stuff. So, but I went to Taliball, and everybody knows Ballmaster is the biggest tournament in Europe last 50-some years. So it's like, maybe I should go and bowl and support. It's like one time. And I talked to local Brunswick distributor, and can I get one ball? I can go and bowl one squad. And they give me actually 2 balls. And I borrow Osku Palema's brother's bowling shoes. And I bowl one squad, and I start to feel, okay, that's actually okay. And then I decided to re-enter, and I end up making finals, and I end up making some cuts, just throwing basically one ball whole time, and borrowed shoes. And that gave me like a fire to come back for the bowling. And then mid-January, we moved here in Traverse City, Michigan, and we don't know anybody beside our daughters. My oldest daughter have a business here, so that's why we moved here. So let's go to the bowling center. We find friends there. And I start to bowl some leagues, and slowly I start to bowling really good, and I start to enjoy the bowling again. So I decided to start to practice even, not just bowl leagues. And now I'm practicing 4 or 5 times a week, bowling 4 or 5 times a week, and trying to be ready to start to bowl last 5 tournaments of the senior tour starting mid-July.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious how, obviously, you've coached the UAE. I'm not sure what other coaching sort of gigs you've had, but every bowler has their bowling career, and then it's kind of the thing in the back of the head of, well, when I'm too old to bowl, or I don't want to bowl anymore, or I've done this, I've done that, why am I going to coaching? Was that how it was for you, or did you kind of just fall into it?
I always liked coaching. Even back in Finland, I took some early 90s, I took like coaching education back there, whatever they had there, early 90s. Of course, I'm lucky enough to be coached like top coaches in the world. I've been working with many great minds and knowledge people in the bowling, and I always try to learn how they do what they do, and then kind of do my own version of that. So even when I was at the PPA, we did some coaching once a while, some clinics around the world, and something here in the US, and a couple of individual lessons. 2013, I was the assistant coach, technical advisor for Denmark team, and they went to World Championships. And I really like that. Of course, it's a great program in England, so really like to work with those athletes there. And we won the first team World Champion medal they got in the men's side there, so it was a great experience for me also. I knew that at some point when I'm not bowling anymore, I probably will be coaching. And I still want to do coaching. I'm still looking for some trips somewhere, but probably not for full time. Like I signed 1 or 2 year contract. I probably want to be much closer with my girls right now. But never say never. But hopefully I find some team I can go and let's say coming Asian Championships. Maybe I go some country 2 weeks before, help them prepare and help them do the championships. I think I'm really good for understanding the gameplay, commitments, all that technical part, and can help any team that way.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you've been looking at work with a lot of great coaches and a lot of great minds in the bowling world. Who do you think was probably the most integral in your success? during your career?
I think the Ron Hobby, because whatever he did late 90s to change in my team, and he introduced me to good people like a mental coach that I was using in USA. And later, when I was in Brunswick there, Rick Benoit was there. I learned a lot from Rick Benoit, mostly for the gameplay and bowling ball shape, what you want to do, and reasons why some things happen or don't happen. And lately in my career, Mark Baker was helping me sharpen my game too. So like I said, those are probably three most important. I like to work with Del Ballard. There's a couple other guys in the tour I've been able to work too.
Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of people who, might be in my place or, wherever over the world who's listening to this and that, their ambition is to get to the PBA one day. What advice could you offer to those people?
There's no shortcuts. You have to work for it. It's not going to be easy. There's always going to be bump in the roads. There are going to be tough times, but how you handle those tough times tells a lot. What kind of person you are and how you work after you get defeated. It's easy when everything goes good, but how hard you work and how much work you put, or sometimes you put too much work, sometimes you need to take time off. It's of course personal, but it's not going to be easy. Either way, it's not going to be easy. If it's easy, you will hit the wall soon.
Mm-hmm. So I suppose that what's kind of overshadowed in bowling, and I think my dad, he's on it all the time, and it's such an integral part of not just bowling, but everything, life, sport, so much. I think a lot of people discount how important the mental aspect of bowling is. How important for you was the mental side of bowling to, get to the place that you are today?
Oh, it's a huge part of the higher level you go, more mental it comes. And I've been lucky enough. I worked with a great guy back in Finland from early 90s in my mental game. And then when I moved to US, I found through the hobby, I find a great mental coach here too. And it's the same thing. You need to practice that too. It's not you listen to somebody one day and you think you're gonna know all that stuff. It's like your physical game. You keep practice, and you need to be honest with yourself. And if there's nothing wrong with you, you cannot fix it, right? You need to say that I'm not good enough for this, so how I can get better for this. So that's the first step.
Mm-hmm. So finally, the question that we're asking everyone now is, if you had the opportunity to nominate one person to come onto the podcast next, who do you think we should bring on?
That's a good question. You should try to get Chris Barnes, because when I was the Weber Cup captain 2 times, I beat when he was the captain both times, so you can ask that for him.
Awesome.
Mika, we do appreciate you taking the time this evening to speak to us. It's been really interesting. I mean, you've had an amazing career, and hopefully you're the first of many PBA Hall of Famers that we have on the SpareTime Podcast. So thank you very much for taking the time, and we do hope that we'll get to speak to you again at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you guys for having me. I had a good time.
So that's the end of another SpareTime Podcast. If you like what you see, then just like below or subscribe, or do both preferably. And we're going to be back again at some point with another episode. We'd like to thank ADR Ware for sponsoring this SpareTime Podcast. And we're going to be back again soon. So for me, Nigel, and him,
Ben,
we'll see you next time.